Most people imagine Roman power on land, legions in gleaming armor, marching down stone roads, building mighty fortresses. But one of Rome's deadliest frontier weapons could float. Across the empire's northern borders, where the rivers Rhine and Danube twisted through hostile territory, a silent fleet guarded the edge of civilization. And at its heart was a small, fast, and surprisingly graceful ship, the Navis Lusoria. A vessel that let Rome rule not just by road and sword, but by river. The Navis Lusoria was the empire's river warship, a sleek, shallow-draft patrol boat that turned Rome's frontiers into floating fortresses. It wasn't as famous as the triremes of Actium or the galleys that crushed Carthage. But for 4 centuries, it quietly kept the empire alive. If you enjoy discovering the hidden machinery of ancient empires, don't forget to subscribe, because today, we're sailing into the forgotten world of Rome's river fleets. By the 1st century CE, the Roman Empire stretched from the deserts of Egypt to the misty forests of Germania. Its northern boundary was unlike any other, 1,000 miles of fast-moving, unpredictable water. The Rhine and Danube were both a barrier and a highway. On one side were Roman provinces. On the other, Germanic tribes, Dacians and Sarmatians, watching, waiting, raiding. Rome needed a way to patrol this liquid frontier, to move troops faster than enemies could cross. And so, the Classis Germanica and Classis Moesica were born, permanent river fleets stationed along the empire's veins. These fleets became Rome's eyes and ears on the frontier, scouting, patrolling, and when necessary, striking. But they needed ships suited to these waters, not deep-sea galleys, but nimble craft that could slip through shallow channels, chase raiders, and land soldiers on muddy banks. That's where the Navis Lusoria came in. The Navis Lusoria was a masterpiece of military engineering, elegant, fast, and ruthlessly efficient. Most were around 21 to 22 meters long, and only about 3 meters wide. Their hulls were built from oak planks, clinker style, meaning each plank overlapped the next for extra strength and flexibility. Unlike ocean galleys, the Lusoria's draft, how deep it sat in the water, was incredibly shallow, barely 40 centimeters. That meant it could skim over sandbanks, cut through side channels, and glide right up to a riverbank without running aground. Each ship carried roughly 30 men, 24 oarsmen and 6 soldiers or officers. But these weren't ordinary sailors. Most Lusoria crews were legionaries, soldiers trained to fight both on land and at sea. Propelled by 12 oars on each side and a small square sail for downstream travel, the ship could reach speeds of 10 to 12 kilometers per hour, fast enough to catch raiders or escape ambushes. And thanks to its symmetrical hull, it could reverse direction without turning around, a crucial trick on narrow rivers. Think about that, an agile warship manned by disciplined soldiers patrolling every bend of Rome's river borders. To the tribes across the river, the Lusoria wasn't just a ship, it was a warning. Rome could be anywhere at any time. Life aboard a Lusoria was a mix of monotony and terror. Most days were spent rowing against the current, patrolling the same stretches, eyes scanning for movement in the tree line. At night, the ships anchored near forts or hid in quiet inlets. The crew, soldiers from local legions, lived under constant readiness. A sudden signal fire from a fort could send them racing downstream into battle. They slept with weapons at arm's reach. Pilum, gladius, even light artillery like a small ballista could be mounted on deck. Food was basic: bread, dried fish, olives, and watered wine. The deck had no shelter, just a canvas awning against the rain. And yet there was pride. To serve on the river fleet was to be the Empire's first line of defense. Archaeologists found evidence at mines suggesting that Lusoria crews painted their ships, red, black, and ochre. Each vessel had a name: Fortuna, Victoria, Invicta. Symbols of the Roman belief that even on the edge of the known world, order could prevail over chaos. So how did these ships fight? The Lusoria wasn't built for ramming like a trireme. Instead, its power lay in speed, coordination, and surprise. When Germanic raiders tried to cross at night, Roman scouts would spot them, a signal torch, a horn blast, and the Lusoriae would move in fast. They'd form a loose line, intercepting rafts and canoes mid-river, archers loosing arrows from the decks, while others hurled javelins or used long poles to push enemy boats aside. In some cases, the Lusoria even acted as a troop transport. Soldiers could leap ashore to repel raiders or reinforce isolated forts. The river was Rome's highway, and these ships made it deadly efficient. The speed was so impressive that Roman commanders began using Lusoriae for intelligence missions deep into barbarian territory, slipping through fog and forested banks, gathering information before melting back into the current. If the legions were Rome's fists, the Lusoria was its dagger. In the age before railroads or paved highways, rivers were the fastest way to move anything: troops, supplies, news. And Rome mastered this like no other. A Lusoria could travel from one fort to another in hours, where marching soldiers might take days. This network of rivers became a kind of Roman water highway system. Commanders could coordinate responses across hundreds of kilometers, a system centuries ahead of its time. It's not an exaggeration to say that the Lusoria helped delay the fall of the Roman frontiers. Even as barbarian pressure increased, these ships kept the border alive, ferrying reinforcements, rescuing stranded garrisons, delivering grain and mail. The Lusoria was never meant to conquer. It was meant to endure, and for centuries it did. For centuries, the Lusoria was forgotten, its timbers rotted away, its name lost in Latin texts. Until 1981, when construction workers in Mainz, Germany, made an extraordinary discovery. Beneath the mud of the ancient riverbed lay the remains of several Roman ships, among them, perfectly preserved Lusoriae. Archaeologists realized they were looking at the backbone of Rome's frontier fleet. From these remains, researchers reconstructed two full-scale replicas, Regina and Victoria. When tested, they confirmed ancient reports. The Lusoria could reach 11 kilometers per hour, turn in its own length, and handle treacherous currents with ease. Tests also revealed something unexpected. The ship was astonishingly quiet. Its hull design absorbed shock and minimized splash, perfect for stealth operations. Imagine a squadron of these ships gliding through river mist, unseen, until the moment of attack. To the barbarians on the opposite bank, it must have felt like the river itself had turned against them. A few details make the Lusoria even more fascinating. The name Lusoria comes from the Latin ludere, to play. It likely referred to its light, agile nature, but the irony wasn't lost. Rome's playful ship was a weapon of empire. Some fleets coated their hulls with a mix of pitch, resin, and animal fat to make them waterproof, and to add a distinct, oily sheen that glimmered in sunlight. That visual signature alone could send a clear message: the patrol was near. Inscriptions found on recovered rudder blades reveal that Lusoriae were often dedicated to river gods, a nod to the superstition of sailors who knew one storm or sandbank could end their voyage. And there's evidence that some ships were fitted with small artillery, torsion-powered ballistae, making them early examples of armed patrol boats. But as the empire weakened in the 4th and 5th centuries, the Lusoria fleets began to vanish. The forts along the Rhine and Danube grew quieter. Funding dried up, and the disciplined crews were replaced by irregulars and locals. When the Rhine frontier finally collapsed around 406 CE, as thousands of Vandals and Alans crossed the frozen river, no fleet stood in their way. The Lusoria's silence marked the end of Roman control in the north. And yet, its legacy lived on. Medieval rivercraft borrowed its shape, the shallow hull, the balanced steering, the speed. Even modern patrol boats echo its design, light, fast, and maneuverable. In the story of Rome, the Lusoria is a reminder that empires aren't just built on grand victories. Sometimes survival depends on quiet persistence, and a few brave men rowing through the fog. So the next time you picture the Roman Empire, don't just think of marble temples or marching legions. Think of the rivers, the living borders that shaped history. And think of the Navis Lusoria, the humble ship that turned those rivers into Rome's shield. Even today, standing on the banks of the Rhine, you can almost hear it. The creak of oars, the splash of water, the echo of commands shouted in Latin. A forgotten fleet still patrolling the edge of the known world. If this journey through Rome's secret river fleet fascinated you, give this video a like. It helps more history fans discover forgotten stories like this one. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the machines, tactics, and people who built the ancient world.